everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want to get you fired up about creativity as the magic of life and learning. My guest today is Dr. Ruth Reed, and we're talking about her book, Creativity, The Spice of Life and Learning. Now, you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Dr. Ruth. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you, Dr. Angie. It's my pleasure to share wonderful ideas with others.
I love it. Now, before we get started, because I definitely want to talk about your book and all that you have to share, there may be a person or two out there that's listening today that is unfamiliar with your work or unfamiliar with your name. If you could, please, can you tell us a little bit about who are you, just what makes you you?
I've worked in education, and I've geared my studies and experience throughout a big part of my life to develop creativity in other people, to be real appreciative of ideas that come from children who are being creative. And I think that everybody has a passion. I know my passion is to share this with others, that they use their creativity, but first of all, you have to find out what it is. And then everybody has it in some area or another, and move ahead, and it will make your life better. So through my experience as a human being, I have found out that in the schools, it is very important to develop this creativity and not just go for developing the child on test scores only. We need to develop the total child. It is so important. And if we don't do this, oh my gosh, if we don't do this, we lose people, creative interviewers, we lose novelists, we lose poets, we lose scientists, inventors, and I think the schools need to have ways to incorporate creativity in the schools. It is so important, and I think parents need to really have help raising their kids creatively. And I think when we come across different situations that are challenging, like my own life, I know that we have to learn to think outside the box. So that's a big part of creativity also. So I've kind of dedicated my life to making sure that people know how important creativity is.
Oh, absolutely. And I am grateful for people who want to shine a light on that, and especially within the schools. And you are so right. We should not only allow one style of learning or one style of teaching, because people learn in such different ways, and there's so many different ways to teach something that when it registers with the child in the way in which they need to receive it, boy, does the light bulb turn on. So you are
I agree.
Definitely right. And you know that I think about how many schools have unfortunately had to take music out of their schools, or they've had to, only the resources are only available once or twice a week as opposed to every day, and how that child that really needs that, how they are now being limited just due to the cutbacks and resources. So you are definitely on to something. Now, being an author, is that something that you always wanted to do, or did you find that it was just one of the many next steps on your life path?
I always wanted to be a writer, and even as a young person wrote poetry or wrote things to people. And I think kind of we're born like that, where it really hits our heart that that's a way of reaching people. And I think being able to work with students was really an eye-opener about how I could bring out their creativity. Students, especially in elementary, are so open to creativity. They haven't been destroyed yet. That's a joy to see kids actually being creative, appreciating what they do, and sharing it with others. And it's really like magic. It can change your life. It's so important.
Mm-hmm. You are so right. I read something somewhere, and this was many years ago. Don't remember who said it, but it was just the words that I read. And it said, one of the greatest disservices of becoming an adult is that we lose our imagination. And
that is so true.
Yeah, I understood what they were saying. You know, kids can be so creative because they still have that sense of wonder and imagination, and there's no shame in the creativity in which they want to do. You know, the way in which they want to express themselves.
Yes.
So
right.
I love it. I love it. Now, speaking of this creativity, I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and as a fellow counselor, you understand how important it is for folks to be on the same page. So with that being said, how should we understand the word creativity in the way in which you use it in your book?
That is an excellent question, and it's a very, very important term. And before I start with that, I'm going to kind of hint at a definition, because Einstein tells us that imagination is more important than intelligence. That's an amazing comment. But creativity is related to so many things, like developing the self, and the definition to know what it is important if we're going to develop that self and the self of others. Creativity helps us find magic in things because we look at things with an original view and a passion that can spice up our lives and make our lives more interesting and beautiful. Share our creative ideas with others, and this can strongly influence the ideas of others or their work on creativity, as well as our own life. It's very important because without it, as we said earlier, we will not have scientists, inventors, musicians, people who interview people creatively. We will not have a lot of things that this world needs, and it has to start when kids are young. But here's something that shows how important it is in each life. I think I want to give you a little more in detail later, but I wanted to read this for you so you understand like where I'm coming for here on life and how important it is to make it count. Okay, this is in the first part of my book, and it says, we are on this earth a short time. Therefore, during the span between birth and death, each individual should continue to develop one's inner self in a creative and personal way. This sensitive, creative vitality seems to be a natural part of the existence of young children. Yet as they grow up, creativity is only nurtured by a really small minority. And I want to also, hold on one second here. I'm going to use Frank Barron because he gives a really good definition of creativity, okay? He said it can be defined quite simply as the ability to bring something new into existence. Creativity reflects individual skill and originality in the production of new ideas and things. He gives examples. We've got to have examples to extend our learning so we understand the meaning. And he starts off saying that the creative person is able to synthesize, to be a divergent thinker, be flexible, be fluent, open-ended, self-actualizing, and have a sense of destiny. He also states that the creative person is tolerant of ambiguity. In other words, they accept multiple answers to a single problem or challenge. There is a person called Kneller, G. Kneller, K-N-E-L-L-E-R, and he suggests that creativity should have the following traits: intelligence, awareness, fluency, flexibility, elaboration, skepticism, persistence, intellectual playfulness, humor, and non-conformity and self-confidence. So there's so many things that you can use to identify a creative person, and each individual has their own outlets or ways of expressing this or sharing it with others. But it is so important that each person find this, Dr. Angela, in their life.
You are so right. And as a person who believes 1,000% in creativity, I am on the train going the way you're going, because it is so important. It really and truly is. I know that one of the things that I share with my counseling clients is the example of free writing. Just write, get whatever's in your head out. Don't worry about the punctuation. Don't worry about the spelling, but just get it out. And sometimes in doing that, not only are they able to find a sense of closure or to find their voice and to say what they need to say, but they find that they actually enjoy writing, and now they have a way of expressing themselves creatively that they never knew that they could do before, because no one, introduced that to them. So absolutely. You have said a lot there. I love those definitions. Thank you for sharing that. Now, for someone,
Dr. Angela, sorry. I wanted to say that you are right on the button. And it's like, if you don't think you can do something, you won't do it. But if you don't have the surrounding or the environment, you won't do it. But I wanted to share how right you are, because I remember when I first started writing, I thought this has to be perfect. And I was like struggling to get the grammar correct the first time, to get the sentence and the transferring of ideas and paragraphs. And then someone said, you shouldn't do that because that destroys your creativity. So you're right on that. Oh, my gosh, you are so right. So anybody who's even starting to be creative and write, follow your advice. Very accurate, and don't try to make it make it like something that you have to make perfect, like personalize it, but it can't be perfect. And it's the creative ideas that really, really count. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is so true. I really believe in that.
Absolutely. Now, I want to, oh my goodness, let's see, we have about 2 minutes left in this half, and we may have to address it after we come back from break, but I want to give you an opportunity to address the person who says, well, you know what, I'm a logical thinker. I'm the person that if it doesn't make logical sense, then I'm not going to do it. I hear your fancy definitions of, what creativity is and all of that, but it needs to make logical sense. How do we explain creativity to someone who says logic is the only way to go?
Well, I think logic is important, and they say that covers the left side of the brain more than the right. But you can use your logic to create factual organization, how you set it up, how you make your ideas flow together. And every single person, even though they're very logical or they're very much geared just to mathematical equations, you can still use creativity in a lot of that stuff, because it's the way you approach it, it's the way you set it up, and it's how you try to be original where no one else may have set it up quite the same as you.
I love that.
But I would say be true to yourself. If you're logical, that's a gift too. And we need both sides of the brain working together to come out with a good life and a good person and a good product. Dr. Angela.
Yes, I love that, because it's true. We do. If you need something that's going to transport water, the logical answer is that it can't have holes in it, because you need to get from point A to point B. But I love how the creative person can come in and say, but it doesn't have to just be utilitarian. It can also be beautiful or glamorous. We can make it something that we've never had before. A bucket doesn't just have to be a bucket. A bucket can be beautiful by being creative and logical. So I love what you are saying. Well, Dr. Ruth, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes, a copy can be bought off of Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And there is a website that explains a lot of my materials, and that is key-notes.us. And I think that if you want to get in touch with me, I do have an email, but I'm not sure that everybody would want to use that. It would probably be better to go on the website, Dr. Angela.
Alrighty, not a problem. Alrighty, you guys, so now you know what website that you can visit. That's key-notes.us to find out more about the book, pick up a copy, and to stay in contact with Dr. Ruth. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for our Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Dr. Ruth Reed, and we're talking about her book, Creativity, The Spice of Life and Learning. And you guys know that I love creativity. I love music. I love the arts. And we have to allow people to think outside of the box. And when we do, we see creativity and imagination in action. Now, the title of your book, Creativity, The Spice of Life and Learning, why did you feel that it was time to write this book? Why was it important to get it out at the time of now?
That is an excellent question, Dr. Angela. I think everybody has a legacy to leave, and it's all in different areas, and it deals with different personalities. But I think that I have found through my teaching, through dealing with people just in everyday, relationship, and through studies, through degrees, through research, that this is such an important topic, and I want to leave it so the schools will realize, this is my message to the schools, do not obliterate creativity out of the learning or leave it out of the program for the curriculum for students, because it's just such an important thing. So it really drives me passionately to make sure that people know that creativity is important, that it's important in schools, and a child is so open to it all. And I think sometimes our schools judge these kids just by test scores, and it's so wrong, because sometimes even the creative child may not even be good in taking tests because they see beyond what most kids see, and it's hard for them to just have one answer. The creative student has a lot of options for different avenues. And that's not always recognized. And I've got to speak in favor of the schools. They have a lot of kids in one room, and it isn't easy to do what a teacher does, let's be honest. But I think it's still important that they don't over-prep the kids for test-taking scores, for how to do this or that, and leave out the most important thing in their life that identifies them as the individual who they are, the creative individual. And I believe that creativity is even tied in with the spiritual, with God, our heavenly creator. And this is so important that we develop this, which is a gift from God, so that we can share with others and come up with new ideas. And how about the scientists now who are developing vaccines for this virus that's going around? What would happen if they were, kind of smashed down in school and said, be quiet and sit down, and, creativity is not routine, right? See what I mean? I mean, there's a relevant example there, Dr. Angela.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, because I look at some of the people and including some of the technology that we have, that we utilize, right now, in ways that we communicate with each other, because we're now, all in quarantine, the space program. I mean, just so many things. If that person had just stuck with, this is the way that we always do it, we wouldn't be where we are today. So we have to applaud that person and encourage that person to help us get to the next spot. Let me tell you, if we don't encourage people to be creative, how are we going to get not only to the moon, to Mars, but to wherever else we need to go in the cosmos? We have to be able to encourage that. You are so right. There whoever's going to find the cure to fill in the blank, you know how we say someone's going to find a cure to cancer.
Right.
That person has to be able to not be stifled, but instead to explore and to be creative. You are so right. I tell you, I'm enjoying my conversation with you today, Dr. Ruth. I really, really am. I love it. I love it. Now,
you are a very creative person, Dr. Angela. You're a very creative person yourself. So you have a spark that you share with others, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, I have found that most of the people that I know that are creative, you're ever thinking. You're always creating. You're always thinking about, can I do something more? Can I, not that what you're doing isn't enough, but, you know, should I be on one more time? Should I share one more passage or one more bit of information? Because you just want to make sure that you don't want to leave this earth with any information left.
No.
You know? It's like I have to pour this into someone else and let someone else know. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Now, for the person who says, you know, Dr. Angela always has authors on. Someone's always talking about how great their book is. So for that person who says, what makes your book different, how can someone benefit from your book, Dr. Ruth?
That is a very good question. And someone could benefit, especially children, because there's developed coded worksheets that tell each step and each level the student's on or the child from a parent is on. And it involves many, many levels of creative outlets and writing and language arts with some art tied into it. And it gives a full encompassing schedule or agenda would be a better word for kids to develop with a parent or a tutor or a grandma or a teacher or someone even in the brother or sister, someone in the family helping the child to grow creatively. At the beginning of the book, there is research on creativity, how important it is, why it's important that schools do not cut out creativity, why it's important for the inner development of the child and the adult, why it's important to share your ideas with others. And we talked earlier about how a scientist now is coming up with vaccinations, and sometimes this creativity can even change other people's lives or prolong their lives in a medical situation. So it's not just the poetry area, but it could be medical fields where they have high creativity too. It can be in every single field, and it depends on the person where they find their gift to deal with this. But I think the gift is no good if you keep it inside and you don't share it with others. So creativity automatically is a very much of a sharing thing.
You are so right.
And, you know, here's something to think about for parents, Dr. Angela. A person doesn't wake up on their 21st birthday and go, oh, my gosh, I've got a party. I'm going to be with my friends. I'm going to have fun. And I'm going to start being creative. It has to happen sooner, like when the child is at a younger age. I mean, you can say, okay, I haven't been creative. I'm going to try. You never say no to anything. But you have to nurture this just like you have to nurture a child with food. And it's so important that they have this experience when they're younger, or they're not going to wake up and go, oh, okay, yawn, jump out of bed. I'm going to do it today. It just works that way. And thinking, as you said earlier, you touched on something real important, thinking outside the box. Thinking outside the box is needed more than ever in this world with just fast-moving things, changes, technology. And when I wrote one of my books, we're not talking about this book now, but it was The Strangest Autumn, the character thinks outside the box and saves the whole day at the school. And it's so important to realize that, you know, you can change things with this, and it can be made important, but you have to bring it into an average, ordinary, everyday life, and it changes that to a really special life.
I love that, and you're so right that the thinking outside of the box is so important. I wanted to go back just a bit because you made a very important point, and that is about parents and developing creativity. That is not just one thing, that it could be a whole host of things. I know one thing that I did to be creative was with food. And I don't necessarily mean me making the meals, but I introduced to what I called eating around the world. When my children were little, it's like, let's go have this today. Let's learn about a country and then let's go try their food. We have a restaurant, not too far away from us. Let's go try that. Let's find out what we like about that cuisine, and just being kind of creative in the way that other people use sauces or the way they use vegetables or whatever. So there's more than one way. You are so right.
That's so true.
That.
Yeah.
Parents, you guys are so important. Really, really are important. So true. Now, you mentioned the standardized test, and I am a very big advocate of let's not test our children to death. I agree with you there.
Thank you. I really believe in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I tell you, I was a PTA president at my poor son's school for all of his life. He's like, oh, well, here comes my mom, but it's like we need to speak up so that there is that space for children to be able to be creative and not just test to death. How can we make school fun for our students? So do you think that standardized testing measures creativity in any way? How can teachers tap into all of their students in a way that student feels validated?
Very good question. I think that testing is important in schools, but I feel it's gotten out of control right now. But I think the standardized testing does not have any creativity in it at all. As a matter of fact, I want to read you this quote. I have the most wonderful quote, which is from it's from the Encyclopedia of Children's Health, Infancy through Adolescence, and this says exactly what you and I are saying. Standard intelligence tests measure convergent thinking, which is the ability to come up with a single correct answer. However, creativity involves divergent thinking, which is the ability to come up with many unusual answers that go far beyond one single answer. And this is why it's so important that a child doesn't get tagged with certain test scores the rest of their life. And even an IQ test, you can have a highly creative person who's a genius in creativity, but they go beyond what questions are asked them, and they're not good test takers. Some are, some aren't. And I think it's so important to really keep focused and to try to have other ways to see creativity in students. And this is why my book is so good, for it shows different levels that are coded. And this is my masterpiece and my legacy I'm leaving behind, because I put a lot of my life experience in there to help this situation get better in our world, Dr. Angela.
I love it. I love it. And leaving a legacy is so, so important. How can we make sure that the next generation is going to be better off having lived the life that we have lived? I love that.
That is so true.
Yeah, it really is, and so many people don't think about that. I tell folks that I am not only proud of my family, but I am so grateful for the family that I have, because I have folks that were pouring into me and they shared with me, so it became quite natural to share information, to want to sit down and ask, what's going on in your world, and what did you learn today, and what are you dreaming about? What do you want to do in a year?
Excellent.
You shouldn't be the same person next year that you are today. You should have achieved something,
so true.
even if it's something little. What can we do to be a better person next year, before we start getting all into being your best self and all of that? But just asking those types of questions during conversation. So I've been inspired by the people around me all my life. So I love that we're able to come on and share that here on Daily Spark. Well, it's time for us to go to break, though. But before we do, Dr. Ruth, could you remind everyone again, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Yes, the title of the book is Creativity, the Spice of Life and Learning. It's on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and it's well worth your time, especially if you have elementary school children, to develop this in them and to really have them change their life and move in a direction. And it's so important because if they don't have this creativity exposure in my book or somebody else's book, it's not going to ever come out as a part of their personality. Like in your life, you're a very warm person. You can tell that you've been nurtured that way, and you are blessed. Not everybody has a family who does that. So if the family kind of falls through, then the school is the only choice that can help them to really develop this personal thing in their life that can change their total life. Oh, I really believe in it. It's like magic.
It really is. Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can get a copy of the book. Don't worry, we're coming back to continue this great conversation. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for spending time with me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. My guest today is Dr. Ruth Reed, and we're talking about her book, Creativity, the Spice of Life and Learning. And let me tell you, I am having such a great time talking to her today about creativity and thinking outside of the box and nurturing not only ourselves with self-care, but also allowing our children to keep a sense of imagination and wonder and nurturing their creativity as well, and the importance of that. Now, Dr. Ruth, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and that is that we have two different sides of our brain. We have left brain, we have right brain, and each side is important for a different reason. For someone who's unfamiliar, can you explain the difference between left brain and right brain, please?
Yes, that's really an excellent area to discuss, dealing with creativity also. Well, obviously, both sides of the brain are important, and it's important that they work together. And there are still opinions that are different with different people. They don't all have the same definitions. But the brain contains two hemispheres, the left and the right. It is important to know that both sides are very important for either, like mathematical equations, or the other side for creative things using imagination. There's a gentleman called Sperry, Sperry, and his research says that imagination, holistic thinking, arts, intuition, rhythm, nonverbal cues, daydreaming, and feeling visualizations take place in the right brain. The left brain, he says, deals more with language and mathematical equations and things of that sort. But I think some people get carried away and they go, oh, the right brain is this and the right brain is that. They have to work in unison to produce, great outcomes. And we have to develop both sides of the brain. But, of course, if you are creative, then you are using more of the right side of the brain, working with the left.
And we did make sure to mention that before. And you're right. Sometimes people think as though just because you use one side, you're not using the other side at all. And it's like,
exactly.
We're definitely using both sides, but people do think that way, and it's kind of funny. It's like, poor brain, one side's just over there bored to death, and it's like, no, we use both sides. That's cute.
Like a robot, only using the right arm, right?
Right, and it's like, no, not at all. So I love that. The light may have gone on for someone for that. It's like, what? I was thinking that. So it's like, no, we really do use both, but we tend to talk about one side or the other. Now, why is the display of creative work important as well as rewarding or the recognition and sharing of creative works? Why is that important?
Okay, that's a good question. It's very important if a person does something in the field of creativity or any other field that they have recognition and they have rewards and they also have sharing and display. Because when you think about it, like when you display creative works, it gives appreciation and it can make the person proud of what he or she has done. And it also stimulates other people who are observing this work. And it makes them to have ideas and things for creativity. We all like to be rewarded, and rewards encourage the artist, the inventor, the scientist, and to continue to create. And it takes effort that is appreciated, and we all want to be appreciated. And recognition, these all tie in so closely together. Recognition makes the creator feel proud of his work. He's recognized, and it often affects his motivation to do more in the future. It gives a positive feeling, like warm fuzzy, and it's recognized. His hard work is recognized. It's also a big part of self-esteem, and the more self-esteem you have, the more confidence you're going to have to forge ahead, to take a risk and be creative and share things. And by the way, to be creative, even after talking all about all the reward system here, it's like you have to feel that you are doing something that is helping others and helping yourself, and you have to enjoy it, enjoy the journey while you're doing it, or it's not going to be any good. It's all important, and it keeps us all going. And we all know how nice it is when someone says, like, hey, Dr. Angela, you have a really nice voice. You have a way of reaching people. Ruth, you have a way of telling people about creativity. Well, when they say something positive, it really opens up our mind to listen to them and pay attention to them. And we want to become even better in it. So all of this is tied together, you know, and so important in creativity.
It really is. You are so right. And it's funny that you say that, because I mentioned that to my mother one time. She was able to attend an event that I was hosting, and she said, oh my goodness, you know, everyone wanted to come up and kind of meet and greet with you at the end, and it didn't seem to tire you out. And I said, no, it's like energy for me, because if someone's coming up saying, I never thought of it like that, or I can't wait to share this with a friend or a family member, for me, that's confirmation, you know, that, yep, okay, we're on the right path. Someone understands, someone gets it, and you're right. It really and truly is fuel to keep going and to continue to be creative. I love it. Now, you mentioned another book earlier, The Strangest Autumn, and we only have about 5 minutes left in the program, but I want to give you an opportunity, if you can, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about that book as well. What is The Strangest Autumn about?
Okay, it's a story about a situation that comes up to be very challenging in the school, and the teacher's phone is out of order in the class. She left her cell phone at home on the charger, so she sends a couple of kids out to do errands, and the autumn leaves are falling, and they're almost falling out of control, and the excitement begins when the main character, Dustin, is called up by the teacher and sent out to find out what happened to Sandra and Bill, who went on errands. And it seems that they disappeared. Dustin is sent out to find them, and this is where the adventure begins. But in this story, Dustin goes through a lot. He begins to realize that he's afraid, but he knows what he has to do. And he thinks of the love and words of his grandma, and he moves ahead, and he learns to think outside the box. But he takes a risk, and he's really scared. So too in our lives, it teaches us that we have to take a risk to be creative, to think outside the box, but it's so rewarding. He tells this as an older person. Yeah, he's looking back on the day that this happened. And it's a very intriguing little story that has a lot of themes like adventure, perseverance, overcoming fear, adventure. It's just, kids will love it.
And you said a very important thing there, that being creative requires that you step out of your fear.
Yeah.
That you have to step out of that. And because you're right. And we don't think about that all the time, but musicians or artists are the ones who tend to say, no, listen, this is my baby, so, you guys don't be mean, don't say anything crazy because, my director
we don't want to hear that.
But right, it's like, be gentle, be kind. But the truth is that I think everyone feels that way about something that they have created or something that they want to share with the world that's coming from a genuine place for them. You're right. I would hate for someone to say, oh, that book, or oh, that show, or oh, that guest. It's like, what? This is done with love. Everyone is coming on to share from high place. What do you mean? That's true. We do want to make sure that our voice is being heard, but it's also being heard with the intention in which it is given. So I love that. I love that. Now, The Strangest Autumn, can we pick up a copy from Amazon, Barnes and Noble?
Yes.
For Soul? Okay.
Yes. Right. Yes, you definitely can. And kids love it because it's not only teaching them something, but it's entertaining. That's also important, that they're entertained. And I think kids always have in mind they want to be a hero, and change things. And then when they actually get exposed, they go, oh, my gosh, the courage takes more than I thought. Even at a young age, kids learn that. They don't have to be 22, 23. They learn that young, for sure, with the way life, kind of bats us around sometimes and challenges us. Dr. Angela, may I read a quote that says it all about people who work with creativity with kids?
Not only that, Dr. Ruth, I was going to tell you we have about a minute and a half left in the show. I was going to say, please use this minute and a half to share, to give us words of wisdom, whatever you would like. So by all means, please.
Okay, here's a quote, and it's by Harder, Harder. If we want the benefits of creativity, we ought to have the wisdom to teach it where it is found wanting, to encourage it where it shows signs of developing at the very least, to tolerate it where it threatens to disrupt our comfortable status quo. Oh, my gosh, that says it all, Dr. Angela.
I love it. Well, let me tell you something, and we didn't Dr. Ruth is being so humble, you guys. Let me tell you, she has her BA in English, education, and history. She has her master's in counseling and her PhD in human behavior and leadership. So I am so grateful for you coming on and sharing your wisdom. This isn't something that you just kind of, were flipping through a magazine while standing in line at the grocery store. But this is something that really and truly is your life's work. You have done the research, and you're sharing it with us in such a creative way. So thank you so much for being on and sharing your wisdom with my listeners today. Thank you again.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure, and I hope this message today will change people's lives, and they will lean more towards creativity and follow their passion and be happier.
Absolutely. I love that. And be happy, because that definitely helps us get through the day. I love it. Dr. Ruth Reed, again, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you as well for spending time with us here today. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you to become your best self. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.